It's the year 476 AD. The Roman Empire, the most powerful force the world has ever known, just vanishes. Not with a cataclysmic bang, but with a quiet, slow whimper. Roman citizens wake up one morning to a new reality. Suddenly there's no Rome. The Senate? Gone. The mighty legions? Disbanded. The incredible aqueducts that carried life-giving water? Crumbling into dust. Now here's the crazy part. Most people didn't see it coming. Well, that's not entirely true. A few sharp observers saw the cracks forming. They watched the national debt balloon to impossible sizes. They noticed the military was stretched dangerously thin, fighting wars on too many fronts. They saw corruption seeping into the government, eating away at the very institutions that held the empire together. But the average Roman? They thought Rome was eternal. They literally called it the Eternal City. Does any of this sound familiar? Today, we're diving headfirst into one of the most fascinating and, frankly, terrifying patterns in all of human history, the cycle of an empire's collapse. And here's what's wild. This isn't just a story about ancient Rome. The Spanish Empire followed this path. The British Empire did too. And right now, as you're watching this, some argue that the United States might be following the exact same playbook, step for step. In this video, I am going to break down the 5 distinct stages that almost every great power goes through before it falls. We'll look at the warning signs, the tipping points, and the final decline. By the end, you'll have a clear framework to see exactly where America might sit on this historical timeline. Is history repeating itself? Let's find out. Trust me, you're going to want to stick around for this one. So, what are these 5 stages? It all starts with a period of massive expansion and prosperity. Think of the early Roman Republic or the British Empire during its peak. This is stage 1, the age of pioneers. This is when a nation is young, hungry, and driven by a common purpose. It's a time of great innovation, strong work ethic, and a shared set of values. The country is building, growing, and conquering, both literally and economically. The currency is strong, education is a top priority, and the nation becomes a dominant power on the world stage. It feels like the good times will last forever. But history tells us they never do. Stay with me, because stage 2 is where things start to get really interesting. Let's start with a question. What even is an empire? It's not just a big country with a powerful army. An empire is something very specific. It's when one nation extends its power and influence over other territories and peoples. Think about it. Rome controlled the entire Mediterranean. Spain dominated the Americas. Britain ruled over a quarter of the entire planet. And the United States? Well, we don't call it an empire, but with military bases in over 170 countries and a dollar that is used in every corner of the globe. If it walks like an empire and talks like an empire. But here's the fascinating thing about empires. They all follow a pattern. I mean ALL of them. From the Persians to the Mongols to the Ottomans. They rise, they peak, and then they collapse. In 1976, a British historian named John Glubb wrote a book called The Fate of Empires. He studied the rise and fall of empires throughout history, going back 3,000 years. And what he found was shocking. Every single empire lasted for roughly the same amount of time, about 250 years, give or take a decade. Rome? About 250 years of true dominance. The Mongol Empire? 250 years. The Ottoman Empire at its peak? You guessed it. Around 250 years. Britain's global dominance? From the 1700s to the 1950s? Right around 250 years. Now, the United States declared independence in 1776. Do the math. We're at that 250-year mark right now. Is that just a coincidence? Maybe, or maybe there's something deeper going on. Glubb identified 7 distinct stages that every empire goes through. Today, we're going to break down the total 5 stages, the ones that build a foundation for greatness, and plant the first seeds of decline to see where America might stand. Stage 1. The Age of Pioneers. Every empire starts the same way, with pioneers. These are people who are hungry, innovative, and willing to take massive risks. Think about early Rome. It wasn't the sophisticated marble column civilization we imagine. It was a scrappy city-state surrounded by enemies. The early Romans were tough, disciplined, and willing to fight for every inch of territory. Roman soldiers would march 20 miles a day carrying 80 pounds of gear. They built roads, bridges, and fortifications while also fighting wars. That is the pioneer spirit. Fast forward to Spain in the 1400s. After centuries of fighting to reclaim their territory, the Spanish were hardened explorers. They built ships and sailed into the unknown. Christopher Columbus didn't know if he'd fall off the edge of the world, but he went anyway. Conquistadors crossed oceans with no guarantee they'd ever see home again. Britain? Same story. A rainy little island that decided to build the greatest navy the world had ever seen. British sailors circumnavigated the globe while its engineers pioneered the Industrial Revolution. They didn't have the biggest population or the most resources, but they had grit. And America? Oh, America perfected the pioneer stage. The entire founding of this country was built on risk-taking. The founding fathers committed literal treason against the most powerful empire on earth. Settlers crossed a continent in covered wagons, facing starvation, disease, and conflict. Entrepreneurs built railroads, oil empires, and assembly lines from scratch. This stage is all about innovation, hard work, and sacrifice. People aren't comfortable yet. They're hungry, and that hunger drives everything. But here's the thing. This stage doesn't last forever. That brings us to stage 2, the age of conquests. Once you've built something strong at home, the next logical step is expansion. This is where empires really become empires. Rome started conquering its neighbors. First Italy, then Carthage, then Greece, then Gaul, all the way to Egypt. At its peak, the Roman Empire controlled over 2 million square miles and 50 million people. That's roughly 20% of the world's population at the time. Spain hit this stage hard. After 1492, Spanish conquistadors spread across the Americas like wildfire. They conquered the Aztecs and the Incas, claiming territory from California to Argentina. Spain became so wealthy from New World gold and silver that the Spanish dollar became the first global currency. Britain went even bigger. The sun never sets on the British Empire, they said, and it was true. From Canada to India to Australia, British flags flew on every continent except Antarctica. They controlled the seas, and whoever controls the seas controls global trade. America's age of conquest looked a little different. We didn't always march into other countries and plant flags. Instead, we conquered economically. After World War II, with Europe in ruins, America stepped in. We rebuilt economies with the Marshall Plan. We established military alliances like NATO. We helped create institutions like the United Nations and the International Monetary Fund. And we made the US dollar the world's reserve currency. This is empire building through soft power. But make no mistake, it is still empire building. The conquest stage is intoxicating. Resources pour in, wealth explodes, and citizens back home start living better than ever before. But this is exactly where the seeds of decline get planted. Because conquest inevitably brings something dangerous: overextension. So, after these two monumental stages of pioneering and conquest, what comes next? Okay, you've conquered a bunch of territory, and resources are flowing in from all over. What happens next? You get rich, really, really rich. This is the third stage, the age of commerce. It's the golden age when empires are at their absolute peak. Citizens enjoy unprecedented prosperity, art flourishes, and culture spreads across the globe. For Rome, this was the Pax Romana. 2 centuries of stability and wealth where citizens enjoy public baths and entertainment at the Colosseum. Their standard of living wouldn't be seen again in Europe for 1,000 years. In the 1500s and 1600s, Spain was literally drowning in gold from the Americas. This fueled their Siglo de Oro, their golden age, producing masterpieces like Don Quixote *. Then there was Victorian Britain, the peak of its empire. London was the financial heart of the world. British goods, culture, and ideas spread everywhere. And America? Well, you could argue we're still in this stage. The US dollar makes up about 60% of global currency reserves. Companies like Apple and Amazon dominate the global economy, and Hollywood exports our culture to every corner of the earth. But here's where the tide begins to turn. During the age of commerce, the pioneer spirit starts to fade. Why risk everything when you're already comfortable? Innovation slows. People focus more on preserving wealth than creating it. And that's when the empire starts to make mistakes. This brings us to stage 4. The age of affluence. This is where things start to go wrong, and most people don't even see it happening. Affluence sounds great, right? Everyone's wealthy, life is good. But affluence breeds complacency, and complacency is the silent killer of empires. Several things start happening all at once. First, the military gets overextended. Rome had to defend borders from Britain to Mesopotamia. They needed more soldiers, but fewer Romans wanted to serve. So they started hiring foreign mercenaries, barbarians defending Rome from other barbarians. See the problem? Spain faced the same issue. With so much gold pouring in, why work? They started importing everything, becoming rich on paper but weak at their core. Britain was exhausted after World War I, and the cost of maintaining its global empire became unsustainable. And today? The US has troops in over 170 countries. We spend more on defense than the next 10 countries combined. But our manufacturing base has been hollowed out. We've become dependent on global supply chains. Second, debt explodes. Empires in this stage spend more than they earn. Rome debased its currency to pay the bills. Spain, despite all that gold, went bankrupt multiple times. The United States' national debt just crossed $36 trillion. We're paying over $1 trillion a year just in interest. Let that sink in. Third, internal divisions grow. When times are tough, people unite. When times are comfortable, they turn on each other. Rome descended into civil wars. Sound familiar? American political polarization is at levels not seen since the Civil War. Our institutions have become political battlegrounds. Finally, empires in this stage focus on entertainment over substance. The Roman satirists joked about bread and circuses. As long as citizens had food and games, they didn't care about the real problems. Today, we have bread and circuses on steroids, streaming, social media, endless content. While we're entertained, are we noticing the cracks forming in the foundation? And that leads to the final stage, the age of decline. What's terrifying is how fast this can happen. Empires that seemed invincible can collapse in a single generation. Rome's decline accelerated rapidly. In 376 AD, it was a superpower. By 476, it was gone. Sacked multiple times, the Western Empire fragmented until the last Roman emperor was deposed by a Germanic chieftain. Spain's decline was just as dramatic. After the Invincible Armada was destroyed in 1588, Spain went from the world's dominant power to a second-tier nation within a century. Britain's decline happened in slow motion, then all at once. After World War II, the empire crumbled. By the 1960s, the empire that once ruled the world was a mid-sized European nation. So what causes the final collapse? It's a cascade of failures. Economic decline, currency devaluation, and military defeats. Once invincible armies start losing. Social cohesion vanishes, and finally, rivals rise. Nature abhors a vacuum. When one empire declines, others rise to take its place. So who's rising as America potentially declines? The obvious answer is China. Their economy and military are challenging American dominance. But it's not just about China. The entire global order is being challenged. Multiple rising powers, from India to Brazil, are creating a more multipolar world. The age of a single, dominant superpower may be coming to an end. Is America in decline? It's the elephant in the room, and today, we're going to talk about it. I'm not here to be a prophet of doom, but let's be real about the warning signs we're seeing. Economically, some trends are eerily similar to late-stage empires. We're talking massive debt, persistent trade deficits, and a manufacturing base that's been hollowed out. Our economy leans heavily on finance and tech, not on making physical things. This, plus the widening gap between the rich and poor, echoes the social structure of ancient Rome just before its decline. Militarily, we're stretched thin across the globe. We have commitments everywhere, but back home, we're facing recruiting challenges. Our weapons are marvels of technology, but they are incredibly expensive to build and maintain. Could our supply chains withstand a prolonged major conflict? Many experts have serious doubts. Politically, the division is impossible to ignore. We struggle to pass major legislation, and we can't even agree on basic facts anymore. Trust in our core institutions, government, media, even each other is at an all-time low. This kind of internal conflict is a classic symptom that plagued empires like Rome before their fall. Culturally, there's a feeling that our best days might be behind us. Past generations held a firm belief that their children would be better off. Today, that's not a guarantee. With soaring student debt, housing costs, and healthcare expenses, The American dream feels like it's slipping away for many. The ladder of opportunity feels like it's being pulled up. But here's the crucial part. History doesn't have to repeat itself. The pattern I've described is what happens when empires fail to adapt, when they become rigid and prioritize short-term comfort over long-term survival. But some have reinvented themselves. Take China, for example. It was a dominant world power for centuries, went through a period of decline, and is now experiencing a resurgence. They adapted. They reformed. They refused to let the historical pattern dictate their future. So the real question isn't, will America follow the pattern? It's, can America break the pattern? Let's recap what we've learned. Empires often follow a predictable cycle. They start with hungry, innovative pioneers. They expand their territory. They get rich through commerce. Then they grow comfortable, affluent, and if they don't adapt, they begin to decline. Rome fell. Spain fell. The British Empire fell. It wasn't one single battle that did them in. It was a slow erosion of the qualities that made them great. They became complacent, divided, and more focused on preserving existing privilege than on building the future. The United States is about 250 years old, which puts us right at the average lifespan of major empires throughout history. We're showing those classic late-stage warning signs: the debt, the division, the military overextension. It's all there. But, and this is the hope I want to leave you with, we are also one of the most innovative, dynamic, and resilient societies in history. America has reinvented itself before. We survived a civil war, the Great Depression, and the Cold War. The question is, will we adapt now? Because this historical pattern isn't a prophecy. It's a warning. It's history tapping us on the shoulder saying, hey, you might want to pay attention to this. The pioneers who built empires didn't just accept the world as it was. They challenged it, they innovated, and they took huge risks. Maybe that's what we need today, a return to that pioneer spirit. Not a spirit of conquest, but a spirit of building, creating, and solving our toughest problems instead of kicking them down the road. So, what do you think? Is America in decline, or is this just another massive challenge we'll overcome like we always have? Are we Rome in 450 AD, or are we America in 1940, on the verge of another golden age? Let me know your thoughts in the comments below. If you found this video thought-provoking, please hit that like button and subscribe for more. Because whether empires rise or fall, one thing is certain: history never stops being fascinating. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.